I don't want to put the blame purely on the leaders because at the end of the day, I do believe in the philosophy that you get the leaders you deserve. So it's also our responsibility.
The
premise is that without the mass or the community taking action or initiative, right? You then kind of condone certain behavior and you kind of are the catalyst in terms of how fast something reacts or not.
Yeah.
If you're in a space where you can see the leaders are not moving you in the right direction, we have the power in this democracy of Africa where you can vote. Africans, I believe we creatures of habit. So if something's working, I'm not gonna try and mess it up unless I see the real tangible benefits of why I need to consider something else. But if something's working, keep me in my space, I'm okay, Charlie. Risk appetite, I think we need to move to a more risk-based approach in every aspect of things because we live in a world full of risks. There needs to be stronger partnership models between government and private sector that allows for more exploration and innovation. I would put the third one in the hands of everyday consumers. Everyday consumers need to be a bit more responsible. They need to take more accountability. Not everything's going to come from the government, and the government's not going to save everybody. You know, there's no second Jesus.
Hi, good morning and welcome once again to the Africa Discourse channel, your home for Africa's industry transformational stories. At this channel, we are your gateway to powerful conversation shaping the future of Africa, and we're just about to have another themed conversation regarding digital assets. Joining me once again is Larry from Binance. Hi, Larry. How are you?
Richard, I'm well, thanks, man.
Happy to have you again today on this podcast. I think for the perspective for the benefit of our audience, maybe you want to give us. I know you have a background in legal and you work for Binance, but you've had extensive other. Your background covers other extensive industries you've had access to working with. Can you maybe share that with us once again?
Sure. Larry Cook, work at Binance for the last 2 years. Previously, before Binance, I was at the South African Reserve Bank, looking specifically at fintech space, emerging technologies, as well as numismatic coins and bullion coins, which is the money makers of central banks, where they actually print money and mint money. And then before that, I was at Absa Bank Limited, when it was still Barclays Africa Bank Limited, and then it became Africa, painting the whole continent blue, changing it to painting it red.
Yeah. And
then legal background before that, working at Weber Wentzel, one of the top firms in South Africa currently. And yeah, I mean, my experience across Africa is mainly been in the fintech space, as well as the financial industry. So wherever there's been an intersection between emerging technologies, fintech, compliance, legal, payments, regulatory, of course, policy making, that's been my bread and butter, so to say.
Awesome. Talking about emerging technologies, with the acceleration of, digital financing and the entire digital fintech ecosystem, right? Let's talk about, let's dive deeper into digital assets. Could you maybe explain to a 10-year-old what digital assets are?
Okay. Yeah, I would. It's normally a 5-year-old, so 10-year-old is a bit more advanced.
Okay,
but
5-year-old.
Digital assets, it's not something that's completely new. Right? Because when we find ourselves in this fourth industrial revolution, which pivots from the third industrial revolution, where, there's this adoption of technology, this increase of its versatility, usability, you find speed, a speed increase in, transaction cost decrease in, accessibility increase in, you find yourself in that space, and naturally you'll find emerging technologies.
That's right.
One of those emerging technologies is the distributed ledger technology. And all that allows is, it's one of the cures to centralization. So centralization was something that spearheaded the first three revolutions, where you have the central authority that kind of makes the rules and puts in the parameters for the system, and that decentralized version of it is where that autonomy is now spread or distributed amongst more stakeholders or transaction players. So when you look at distributed ledger technologies, it basically creates that decentralized, more inclusive, less centralized model of technology.
Yeah.
And from that, you then have blockchain technology. Blockchain technology is
These are building blocks.
yeah, 100%. So see it as in blocks, information that's put into blocks,
Yeah.
right? And then chain, because each block is connected to another block. So that means with this distributed network, you have accessibility spread across the entire ecosystem. You have information that is linked to previous information, and the changes of that is seen and is visible across the entire network. And that's where you have that blockchain. And then as you get one layer down, you start having digital assets.
Yeah.
So now that's taking assets, putting it onto the digital economy, which is premised on blockchain.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that now you have a digital asset that I can send to someone, that someone can see I sent it to someone, and nobody can change that. So it gives you peace of mind, gives me security. It just makes the transaction between A and B much easier. And that's digital assets.
In summary, what could be like
examples
of digital assets for?
So the main use case is always monetary, because money is an asset.
Yeah.
It's just been digitized. So now it's cryptocurrencies and variants of cryptocurrencies. You'll have stable coins, which is the most one. So that's an example. But when you talk about other digital assets, you talk about real world assets that's been tokenized.
Tokenized, okay.
Or like this cup.
So I can tokenize a cup.
You can tokenize a cup. You could tokenize.
I can tokenize my entire being.
You actually can. There's actually digital identity that you can attach to yourself,
right,
that no one else can steal. But even yourself as a person, you could take a picture of yourself and digitize that, and then you can sell it and make an NFT or whatever you want to do with it.
I think the conversation is quite diverse. I talk about stable coins, NFT, the blockchain, and the likes. As much as I want to delve deeper into all of those and try to understand all the nitty-gritty regarding NFTs, I mean, NFTs are arts in this case, right? That are tokenized arts. Is that correct?
So it's NFT stands for non-fungible tokens, but artwork is one of the primary use cases of it.
Also, artworks is one of the use cases of NFTs. So the other use cases,
you can use anything. Like for instance, a cup. A cup might not necessarily be artwork, but it might have sentimental or historical value that you wanna attach to the digital, put into the digital economy, and that can be something that's
so an NFT in this case could be a digital asset.
100%, it is a digital asset.
A digital asset, awesome. Let's look at the focus on Africa, right? What does digital asset now looks like for Africa, and what could it look like in the future?
Good question. I asked myself that question as well. I think, if you want to ask the question, what could it look like? I want to kind of say, what does it look like right now? Right. So as the baseline, I say that we as Africans, we've been very creative and intuitive in terms of finding solutions for African problems. Yeah. Right. And where digital assets comes in is probably two buckets that I'm going to loosely use. Is one, inclusivity. So it allows for more people to be involved in certain transactions, more people to be involved in certain economies, right?
Does that help build trust?
I think it is one of the elements for helping build trust, because you can only trust what you're part of, right? If I'm not part of a system and you're asking me to trust a system, I'm going to be more reserved about committing to it. So I do think it is an element towards trust, but also the inclusivity talks about, the day-to-day of an African, being able to make your money work for you, being able to make your life meaningful and finding substance in terms of what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve. And one of those building blocks then becomes digital assets, because as much as people are focused on like the cryptocurrencies and the stable coins, there's so many jobs that have opened up because of digital assets, where even as influencers, as creatives, you reporting about the new trends in crypto, and that was a job that didn't exist 10, 20 years ago. Yeah. And that is a means of putting bread on somebody's table.
That's right.
Giving analyses on different tokens, and giving that advice. It just creates more job opportunities, not just new job opportunities, but existing industries now need 100%. They need to now have a department that can understand what is digital currency. So now there's another person that's hiring. So that means now universities as well, they're going to have to start giving lectures and education on this. That means hiring more students, getting more tutors, etc. So it just opens up the economy and say, here's a whole new department that integrates into everything else that's existing, but also there's new niches that people can explore to try and capitalize on. And coming back to the question now, what does it look like now? What does it look like for Africa? One, it's now opened up an opportunity for Africa to now compete at a global level. And why I say that is something that's always been, and this is just one aspect, something that's always been an issue for a lot of policymakers and regulators, governments in Africa, is managing the stability of their economy, specifically through their currency, their local currency. And that has normally been under threat because of Western currencies that have been more stable. And that brings us to the dollarization and why African countries are quite against dollarization. So now that you have in this digital economy, if we don't put our economies on this digital platform, we'll stand the real risk of being left behind. And the digital economy will be shaped again by what the Western world makes it look like, or what they use it for. And we will then be playing catch up again and follow the leader once again. So that's where we can get into a lot of topics.
Speaking about catching up, right? Do we have the capacity to be on this bandwagon? We've seen, we've of course see the opportunity that exists, but do we have the intellect, capacity in terms of human capital to explore the digital asset space? Absolutely. I think it's a historical situation where Africa has always been rich with resources, has been rich with creativity naturally. I think our in our ability to find a problem and solve it, like I mentioned earlier, that's inherent to us as Africans. We've gone through certain histories and stages in our experiences that have made us and equipped us generationally in terms of seeing things differently. So I don't even think it's a bandwagon. I think that it's something that we can even create our own Bentley as opposed to a bandwagon. So we definitely have that capability. But the question is, do we have that political drive? Do we have that collaborative solutioning that exists between us, where it's not just I'm trying to get rich for myself, but I'm trying to bring my economy 100% and be impactful. Create solutions that enables the rest of the African population.
And those are the hurdles that have stopped us in previous revolutions to advance. And currently we had a new revolution, and we can take advantage of it if we don't repeat previous mistakes.
I think talking about repeating previous mistakes, we are still on the track, on the road to repeating those same mistakes, looking at the kind of leaders we have in power across African continents. Some of them have limited knowledge about this, the new technology, the new revolution. How might we eventually get on this road if we have people the people who actually have the political will, people who have the political capacity to make decisions, not really understanding the space in which we play in?
Yeah, excellent question. And I guess this is also some of the strategic analysis or at least my job entails when I'm looking at what we as Binance can do for Africa and empower Africa. Yeah. Right? I don't want to put the blame purely on the leaders, because at the end of the day, I do believe in the philosophy that, you get the leaders you deserve. So it's also our responsibility.
We deserve?
Okay. It's a philosophical point of view. Yeah. But the point is that, the premise is that without the mass or the community taking action or initiative, right? Yeah. You then kind of condone certain behavior, and you kind of are the catalyst in terms of how far something reacts or not. Yeah. If you're in a space where you can see the leaders are not moving you in the right direction, we have the power in this democracy of Africa where you can vote. It might not be the easiest challenge, but the collective voice is always stronger than an individual voice or a group of voices. Yeah. And that's something as people, we should never let go of our power, especially the youth knows. I say youth. I once upon a time was also a youth.
You still look youthful though.
Thank you. I think I'm a retiring youth, but the youth nowadays is even more aware of their ability to impact change, and you see that through demonstrations where tax increases are affecting day-to-day living, where they can see the type of corruption that's taking place, and they kind of affect that. But I don't want to ever group all African leaders as that, because I've personally met amazing leaders who are progressive, who understand the technology, understand the need of the people.
And even if they don't understand the technology, they're open to it, embracing.
And that's why we're here in Ghana, having conversations with the central bank, the SEC, is because even their generation, their leadership is becoming younger. You can't be 70, 80 years old forever. Eventually, there's going to be a successor, and they come with that connection to new thinking, and that's the mindset that I think will lead Africa to a better place where it's kind of currently positioned, from where it's currently positioned to where it deserves to be positioned. I
think, still speaking about the youthful population of Africa, Africa has the largest youthful population of youths rather in the world. And one of the challenges we see is most of these youths are in underserved communities, right? And may not have access to this knowledge or information or insights around the revolution now. Okay, how can we decentralize education so that we can also tap into the potential of the voices of unity?
I love what you said, decentralized education, because that's exactly the mindset shift that's needed. You don't need to go to a particular school to get a particular type of education.
That's right.
You can be self-taught. I think the building blocks for that, to get that decentralized education, is premised around infrastructure, but also around exposure. And that's something I learned in my industry, in my walk of life, not being where I was now, but having the right exposure, having the right mentors, seeing something that I like, somebody that I like, and kind of saying, can I shadow you? Can I get involved? I think those are the type of skill sets that's required to help that decentralization take place, because I didn't go to school and study anything around crypto. Like that wasn't part of my module.
There was never education.
There was never, or something about AI.
It was all created.
It was. So you
invented,
and you have to be agile enough to put yourself in a position where you can access that information. From an infrastructure perspective, of course, the government and other stakeholders, private stakeholders as well, have a role to play in terms of making sure that there's internet access. Mobile phones are cheaper to be able to be procured, etc. Those building blocks, because ultimately in Africa, all you need is connection and you need a cell phone. And everything else you can make your way through it. So that's, I think, one of the key components for decentralization of education, so that you can get to a position where this type of economy is within your grasp. It's become cheaper, it's become easily accessible, but you do need those fundamental building blocks for you to understand that the space is yours. There's there's experts, but you can easily become an expert in the space if you put down the time, you put down the effort, and you explore the space.
Interesting. Let's get back to digital assets now. But thank you for sharing so much knowledge around how maybe inclusivity can happen in terms of decentralizing education to underserved communities. Does Africa currently have like a representation on the digital asset building space now?
You say that, do we have
representation? So is Africa well represented when it comes to countries across the world that are doing so well within the digital asset space?
I'd say it from two perspectives. I think from an institutional use case perspective, we are on the map. We're on the map, but we're probably not where we should be in the map, if that makes sense.
Okay, so maybe you can explain. We are on the map. What do you mean by that? And
in the sense,
mean by we are not where we need to be? Where do you see us positioned?
Okay, so I'll talk institutional and I'll talk retail. From an institutional perspective, why I say we're on the map but we're not where we're supposed to be is because we understand the technology, we're making use of the technology, and we have serious use cases for the technology. So, and the world has noticed that. The world has seen what we kind of not taken for granted, but weren't really paying too much attention to. And that use case or that example I'll give is stable coins. Right? From a remittance perspective, sending money in and out of countries across Africa has always been something relevant for us. We've been dependent on the likes of like traditional service like Western Union, etc.,
for a very long
time. And because of the way we've been displaced, intentionally or not intentionally, and we've traveled and gone to different jurisdictions, etc., we always have the situation where you either send in money back home or you send in money from home, right? Be it to your sister, cousin, uncle, brother, nephew, mother, father, and that has always been our way of life. Now overlay that with certain within the financial space, right? Payments have been going back and forth, and how we manage in that payment is something that has been controlled by traditional institutions. So now why I say we're on the map is because stable coins, as an example, and cryptocurrencies, for instance, has enabled us to make a lot more of those type of payments cheaper, faster, easier, more reliable, without a third-party intermediary, transfer in value relatively easy, because also the gap in regulation also exists. So regulators are also trying to figure out how to manage this. But that is what has put us on the map. Now, for us to be where we should be, we need obviously tighter regulation, because tighter regulation leads to higher adoption, right, and better understanding and better safety for those that are using this type of digital assets. And then we would be able to double down our efforts in terms of remittancy, paying and receiving stable coins in the use case, and that would take us further in the map, and we'd be able to appreciate how well resourced Africa really is. Because I mean, if you take the considerations of like natural resources, it's always been a thing of, oh no, we mine and we harvest and then we send it out and then we import it back. And something similar to that is taking place, where on the digital economy we have the resources, we have the use cases, but then we go and get external solutions to come and solve for our problems. And that's why that from an institutional level, we're on the map, but we're not where we are. From a retail perspective, we also closer to the map, but not where we're supposed to be, because Africans, I believe, we're creatures of habit. So if something's working, I'm not gonna try and mess it up unless I see the real tangible benefits of why I need to consider something else. But if something's working, keep me in my space, I'm okay, Charlie, here I'm over here. And getting that education, that awareness to show why it could provide better utility or better use cases for the individuals is something that we need to really work down on, because I think a lot of people still attach digital assets to something that's in the air, or something that's not really tangible.
Use case. Yes.
And we still believe cash is king, where if I ask you, what is that cash, that paper money that you have? There's no gold back to the money you have. It's as inflated as, or as speculative or as imaginary as some people incorrectly paint digital assets.
You spoke about the regulators. I'm just thinking to myself, do regulators have the knowledge in terms of, do they have extensive knowledge about the space to regulate the space? Because we normally see innovation lead first before regulations come in. And what is standing in the way of adoption of digital assets for Africa?
Very good question. Very good question. I do think that regulators have the knowledge, because a lot of the fundamental principles of what we actually, or the space that we work in pre-exists the creation of these new digital assets. So principles such as know your customer, right? Know your business, KYC. Principles such as anti-money laundering, anti-terrorist financing. Those principles are kind of the parameters and the safeguards that all of our operations happen within, the rule of law, so to say. So when you start looking at these new spaces, some of the fundamentals don't change, and the regulators have that institutional memory in terms of what worked, what didn't work, and what risks are considered, because they're also looking from a perspective that's not financially incentivized, but their mandates are driven for the security and the benefits of the wider economy. So having appreciation for that, I always say regulators, being an ex-regulator myself, the job isn't easy, and kind of the community looks to you and the public looks to you and says, but you should be regulating this faster, you should be doing this, but not understanding pulling one lever might change another consequence, etc. So it
affects a lot of things.
So I would say what's probably stopping Africa from
maybe you can say that in 3 bullet points.
In 3 bullet points.
So we can wrap up.
Cool. I'd say that one, I think it's risk appetite.
Okay.
Risk appetite. I think we need to move to a more risk-based approach in every aspect of things because we live in a world full of risks. The second one, I would say there needs to be stronger partnership models between government and private sector that allows for more exploration and innovation, but also more sponsorship and contributions to building out solutions. And that talk in money. We talk in money and we talk in permission. Exchange of that. And then the third one, I would put the third one in the hands of everyday consumers. Everyday consumers need to be a bit more responsible. They need to take more accountability. Not everything's going to come from the government, and the government's not going to save everybody. There's no second Jesus in any government that's going to come. So you really need to upskill yourself. And something that hit home for me is that they said when AI comes in the legal fraternity, it's not AI that's going to replace lawyers, but it's going to be lawyers that know AI that's going to replace lawyers that don't know AI.
Interesting.
So having that adaptive, flexible, I want to say African mindset, you need to be more practical and apply it and take more initiative. Stop waiting, stop being lazy, stop waiting for someone else to do something for you. You really just need to own it as your own. And I think that will then change the adoption curve and you'll see better solutions, more innovative products and services that can really serve our people better.
Thank you so much, Larry, for sharing such insight. I like the final words. For us to see growth happen, we need to take things on the arms of our affairs ourselves. This was a chat about digital assets, understanding digital assets, what it looks like currently for Africa, and where we are currently as African continent on the global landmark or landscape. And I think Larry has shared quite extensive knowledge around this. I certainly hope that this is of value to you and enlightens you on how to jump on this. I call it the bandwagon, but he says we could maybe make that a Bentley. Of course. Thank you so much, Larry, once again for joining us.
Thank you.
And that is all for now for this episode. We'll be back with more episodes. Thank you. My name is Richard Joseph, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.